Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is the Oracle Autonomous Database Learning Lounge. I am Marco Senasibi, part of the product management team for Autonomous Database. And today we're going to have a very, very cool session. We're going to be talking about AI. So Marty Gubert is going to take us through all the different things that we actually have added into Autonomous Database natively, so you can work with natural language to SQL. You can create AI pipelines, and you can also work with SQL functions. So he's going to go step by step, and he's going to do a demo and show you and explain how you how you can achieve those capabilities as well, right? Well, with your own autonomous database, right? So throughout the session, we're going to have a Q&A. Make sure to type the Q&A in the Q&A box, right? So your question, type it there. We're going to be monitoring and answering your questions. We're going to also share links using the chat feature of Zoom, okay? And if you need to come back to, watch the recordings or watch other recordings, it's going to be all using that link over there, okay? Speaking of links, this is a set of links I'm distributing to you right now. So if you look in chat, you're going to see links to all of our Get Started pages, the social media components there, and also how you can ask us questions, okay? So Stack Overflow is one way. The Oracle Developers Slack Workspace is another. So you can, ask your question directly there, and we're looking to your questions there. And upcoming sessions. So next week, we're going to have basically the developers nirvana with Autonomous Database, speaking about JSON relational duality in the Oracle Database 23 AI. And we're going to have Julian Donchev. He's going to be speaking to us about that. And the week after, you probably don't want to miss that session either. This is the Autonomous Database SQL Firewall, right? Because hackers deserve 404. So Michelle Malcher is going to be talking about security and the enhanced capabilities of the SQL Firewall right now in ADB. All right. Thank you very much, Marty, for joining us and doing the session today. And you can start sharing your screen and take it away. And thank you again.
All right. Thank you, Marcos. And thank you, everybody, for joining. Really excited to present on the topic, Building AI-Powered Apps, a step-by-step guide. I got to say, I've been at Oracle for a really long time. This is by far the coolest stuff I've ever worked on. And I get really excited by it. So let's jump right in. Okay, so we're going to do a lot of different things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into just a sample application that you can download from GitHub. It's also part of our LiveLabs. It's our ADB chat app, and we've made some really cool improvements to it that enable you to query and ask questions across different business areas. And then we'll peel back the onion. How is this done? How do you define subject areas that you want to access and you want to query? What is an AI profile? What are these things? How do they all work together? And how do you generate better queries? How do you use AI templates to generate and descriptors to generate the right queries based on what people ask? Because questions can be complex, or you may have certain business rules that you want to abide by. So this is one of the things that we'll kind of drill into. First question I always get, well, first question is, does this run on EBS? Second question is, how do I keep my data secure? And we'll kind of drill into that too, and how to keep your database secure. And then gosh, we have a lot to do. Then we're going to go into developing RAG pipelines and querying knowledge bases, and then finally using AI SQL functions to do like data transformations and summarize data. So let's jump right in. So the first thing we are going to do is, well, let me start by saying, well, what is Select AI? And I probably should have had a slide for this. Select AI is a component. It's a feature that's part of Autonomous Database. And what it does is it allows you to use natural language with your data and basically apply AI to your data where you get to pick your models. Those models can come from, it's very open. You can use models from Oracle, from Google, from Azure, OpenAI, etc. It really is the simplest way to get answers about your business. You just use your language. And so we'll just jump right into this chat application. And this chat app is, here we go. So this chat app is, again, you can grab this from GitHub, and we'll have a link to it at the end. You can also get this from our workshop. And it enables you to ask different types of questions. And you can ask these questions against different business areas, right? So in the app, you have you have AI settings. These AI settings say, well, I would like to get questions answered from my analytics site for movie stream. I'm a movie streaming I work for a movie streaming company. Maybe I have some HR data, and I also have a support site, right? So I have all these different business areas coming from, frankly, from different sources. This is coming from tables in a movie stream schema, has streaming data, a list of movies, genres, all sorts of stuff. Then we have HR data, which is coming from a different schema. And then we have the support site. And frankly, the support site is just a troubleshooting site that our our support teams use to help answer questions. So and we'll get into this, we've vectorized this content to enable natural language search against that with the database and with Select AI. So these are going to be our knowledge bases. These are our sources for AI. And now you just start simply asking some questions. What are my total salaries by department? And so we have a little AI function in there that's going to say, based on this question that was asked, which is the right profile that can be used to satisfy that response, right? So that was our first question. It's an HR question, so I'll go to the HR data. And what's nice is that this app is built with Apex, and so you get all the Apex goodies to go with it, right? So once I ask my question, I can chart it, I can take the data, I can download it to a spreadsheet. I have all sorts of capabilities that are available here. What are my top 10 movies based on total streams? In this case, it's going to be asking questions about activity, customer streaming activity, right? And you can see the values there. And then finally, my movie seems frozen and I can't hear anything. All right, so in this case, it sounds like someone's having troubles, right? And they're going to need to get some answers from this troubleshooting site. And that's exactly what's happened. To address your issue of your movie being frozen and having no sound, try these steps. And here's the steps that you go through. And by the way, we have a pointer to where you can get that answer, right? And so it's probably playback issues. Yeah, it is. It's the playback issues where you can get that answer. And what's kind of cool is like this is a semantic search, right? So it's not doing text searching. This is doing I'm asking a question. The model doesn't know about our support, but we vectorized this content, and we're going to do a similarity search. And we're going to say, oh, okay, what is similar to this question that I can get from my knowledge base? I'll package that information up, send it to the model, and the model comes up with the answer. So now, this is how this app works. Again, you can get this on your own. We'll show you where to find it. It's really, really easy to get these answers. Now, let's peel back the onion. Autonomous database, and let me start by saying Select AI supports a lot of different models, right? And there's a lot of different reasons for that. And one of the big reasons is that you probably want to use the models based on where you've deployed your infrastructure quite frequently, right? So, there could be other factors that drive which models you want to use because different models have different strengths. But with autonomous, this is actually probably about, I guess, over a year that we've been able to deploy autonomous databases to Azure. This fall, we introduced deploying autonomous databases to Google, and upcoming we'll have it on AWS. And then we of course have dedicated cloud customers. So basically the beauty of this is you now can run autonomous database where you need it, right? And if I'm running on OCI, the chances are I'm probably going to be using OCI generative AI. And if I'm running on Azure, good chance I'll be using Azure OpenAI, and in Google I'll be running Gemini, right? All of these models are really, the models like we use Llama 3 on OCI generative AI. Gemini is a really nice model too. OpenAI, these are all great models, right? The models are really terrific. The key is that you have flexibility, right? It's pluggable. You use the best model for your implementation and your business requirements. Some models may not be as good at generating SQL. So you have, you can pick which one is best for your case. Your deployment, where you're deployed, makes a difference. So you get to pick the right model for your use case. So actually, the model is the first thing that goes into what's called your AI profile. Okay, your AI profile is it is what is defining the scope of your natural language querying, right? So when we were here and we were looking at all of these different settings, these are actually select AI profiles. That's all they are. They're select AI profiles. And so you could have a profile for finance, for HR, for marketing, for support, right? They're just lightweight metadata objects, right? Their job is, and they're very flexible. Their job is to, one, specify, well, which model do you want to use? That's what we talked about a second ago. But two, what is your scope? What's your data scope? So I might have a finance profile that's pointing my financial data, my HR scope, which we were looking at, support. That's actually not pointing at tables necessarily. It actually is a table under the covers, but it's actually using a vector. It's pointing to a vector index, right? So you have profiles that are pointing to basically collections of tables and or schemas, and they also point to vector indices. Now, the source for the vectors are going to come from your object store, right? So in this case, our website is sourced from an object store. It could also be collateral, PDF files, PowerPoints, Word documents, you name it, right? So your vectors can be defined over all different types of sources and knowledge bases. At the same time, the tables that you have that you're pointing to, let's say you're doing natural language to SQL, those could be pointing to data that's anywhere. That's kind of the beauty of autonomous, right? Autonomous can use links to pull data from BigQuery and Azure SQL and object stores. And so that's kind of this flexibility that you have, right? If you can represent the source through a table, and you can in all of those instances that I just described, you can now query that data using natural language. And it's really, really cool. The question then is, but now that I have this profile, can I access all this data? And the answer is no, right? You can only access this data if you have the privilege to access this data, right? So if I don't have access to finance data, it doesn't matter if I have access to that profile. I can't access finance data. I need the privileges to do so. And we'll talk a bit more about how you set these privileges up. And you know what? The long and short of it is, it respects your existing Oracle security policies. That's what's most important here. But we'll go through a use case. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the first question I was always asked was, hey, does this run on EBS? Because EBS, pretty complicated, right? So the answer is yes, it does. This actually, Select AI runs on EBS, and it's using what we call sidecars. I'm not necessarily going to get into that right now, but the EBS team, and if you go to this blog, and I have the QR code there, you can grab their implementation, their application that basically deploys Select AI on ADB, and that autonomous database will connect to your EBS schema for doing natural language queries. EBS is complicated. They've done an amazing job of enabling natural language queries on top of EBS. It's really impressive. So they've done a great job of taming that complexity by, just like we described all of these different domains or business areas, that's exactly what they've done as well. They have a domain for you know for supply chain, for finance, for all these different areas, right? And they too have done the same kind of approach of being able to query across these multiple domains. So, things can be complex. And the question is, how do you get better answers to your questions, right? And what you can do to get better answers and to assign business rules for your natural language queries is to use natural language templates. And you assign natural language templates to your sources. And those templates are going to describe content relationships and processing rules, things that your LLMs don't know anything about, right? The LLMs don't necessarily know your intent, right? Your business rules. So help them out. Help the LLMs out by adding natural language templates, right? So for example, I have banking transactions here. Transaction ID, its date, the sender account, who's the recipient, currency conversion rates, and the amount. Well, you know what? Every time, maybe I want a business rule assigned to this, because when someone asks for the amount, it may not be enough. So my business rule that I want to assign to this source, my template that I'm going to assign to this source is, hey, anytime someone is querying the field amount, I also want you to include the currency they used and whatever that conversion rate was, right? So what this is going to do is this is going to influence the SQL generation process. And these templates are implemented simply as metadata or comments that you apply at the table level, right? So at the table level, you add this template via a comment that is going to describe the rules, describe the relationships of that information. So by putting it into the database and putting it into the metadata, it's going to be shared. It's going to be used across the board. And this is a really great way to influence exactly how your data is going to be returned, right? When you ask these questions, it encourages consistency of answers, right? You can get this same approach through a conversation. Like, for example, I could say, hey, select my amount. Oh, I get my amount. And they go, oh, but now add currency and conversion rate. So this is something an end user could do, but through a conversation. But if you know that there are certain fields that always go together, or things that rely on one another and are a computation perhaps, build it in, right? And make it shared. So this is something that's going to be done by the designer of the system, right? That's someone who has access to the schema and can actually add those templates. Now, the other thing we do to get better answers to your questions is apply business definitions to database objects. And this is all, again, about helping the model when you have things like meaningless names, right? Or you want to add processing rules. So here's a case where these names are absolutely meaningless. Table 1, C1, C2, C3. Table 2, C1 through C7. Like these, you can't ask a question. Like no one human could look at this and frankly ask a question. So what you do is you add metadata and you describe it. That's it, right? You say, okay, well, table one, this is containing movies, and this is your movie ID, this is your movie title, and this is when it was released. Now you have context, and now you have meaning. Now, one of the things that I don't like to talk about futures, but this is coming really soon, so I will, is that the way the processing works with Select AI is it takes your metadata, these table definitions, the comments, et cetera, and it sends it off to the LLM. And then the LLM takes those your questions and it's able to do the mappings, right? And it's able to use its genius to generate the SQL. So one of the big things that we're doing in probably the next month or so is enabling really large schemas and extra metadata that you can apply in terms of annotations and whatnot. So what does that mean? So now let's say I want to say I'm gonna just let Select AI automatically pick, instead of having the model pick which tables should be participating in the query, we're gonna vectorize. Because we're in 23 AI, we have all this great vectorization support with similarity searching. We're going to pick the best tables based on their descriptions, based on comments, based on annotations. And let's say you have 1,000 tables. We'll automatically pick the 2 tables that are required for your question and only ship those 2 tables to the LLM, right? So this is going to be automated, completely automated. So why do this? It'll be faster, it'll be more accurate, and it'll be less expensive. All right. So 3 good reasons. And this is something that will be landing soon. And, I didn't have my disclaimer on the front of this, our usual disclaimer at the front of this session, but this is coming very soon. And I think this is something that everybody's been looking for. So we're really excited about it. All right. I'm going to jump into security. And then we'll go back into a demo and start showing some of this stuff. But what time is it? So 12:30. Good. We're in good shape for time. So, a couple of weeks ago, we did a workshop with a large bank, right, who was very concerned about security, right, and making sure that, they were just really worried about AI and security and making sure that data doesn't get in the wrong hands and whatnot. And after we went through it, this workshop and showing you're only going to see the data that you're supposed to see. You're only going to be able to use Select AI if you give someone access to Select AI, right? All of the fears melted away, right? And it became like, oh, this just fits into our security models. And that's right. So the first thing is, classically, customers are centralizing. And I'd say the good practice, right, is to centralize your user management and centralize your access privileges to data. Maybe you're using Active Directory or Enter ID, or in this case, we're using IAM, right? The demos the workshop that we went through used IAM. And in IAM, you define your groups. I have an HR group, they can see HR data. I have a Select AI users. These are people who can actually use natural language queries, right? So you define through IAM who can do what, right? What data can they see and what actions can they perform? Centrally managed, right? And that's a really, really good approach. You knock a user out of IAM, they're gone, right? They can no longer access any of your data. One neck to choke, if you will, right? So on the database side now, those groups are going to map to your database roles, right? So your HR group is going to map to an HR role that you define. And your Select AI users are going to map to a Select AI role. At which point now you just grant access to your data based on these roles, right? So for the HR role, they can select from any table on the HR schema. And if I also want to give that person access to select AI, I will give them the select AI role, which gives them the ability to run select AI. Role-based access control to both your data and privileges to do different activities on your database. This is, vanilla database. Select AI just fits, right? Is the bottom line. Now, the thing about Select AI is we have what's called our AI profile. Now, an AI profile is just a lightweight metadata object, and we'll go through it in more detail. That's pointing to HR data. It's pointing to financial data, right? You have these named entities. Now, those named entities aren't shared, right? So you can't say grant, Nalay access to this AI profile. It's an object that's going to live in a schema. And in the case of, in this use case here, your global user, when you log in using, let's say, IAM, you're going to land in a global schema, as everyone else does, right? Or a proxy user. That's where your metadata objects will live, right? So you'll have all your AI profiles sitting in that and this is with their requirement. We want a centralized place to manage the AI profiles. Put them in that global user schema, right? Again, just because you have access to the metadata object doesn't mean you have access to HR data. That's going to be based on your role. But you do have access now to be able to run your natural language queries. And you have now a way of centrally managing those profiles and also your vectors that are going to be stored in that schema as well. So that's it. It just fits right into your existing security policies. This gives our customers great relief, right? That their data will be safeguarded as all their other data is safeguarded. So let's take a look at this. Let's go back and been doing a lot of talking. I'm going to do now a little bit of a behind the scenes look of how all this stuff looks. Let's do our setup. What we're going to do is step through how you create your AI profiles. And what I'm going to do first is create an AI profile. This is one command. It's a single API call. And we're going to give it a name, right? So just like we had our AI profiles here, right? We're going to add a new one here, and we're going to call it top secret. And this contains top secret building project information for our company. And basically you specify what's your AI provider. I parameterize this, and my credential. And we're going to use those comments that I talked about, right? Those comments that describe your columns, those comments that have your templates associated with them. And the other thing we're going to say is, what is the source? Well, I'm pulling everything from the top secret schema, right? That's going to be, not pulling it, that's going to be the target, right? I can access any of that data. So, in just a second, right, I now have this new AI profile. The model it's going to be used, the target data. I can make this more granular too. I could say specifically which tables do I want them to use. And now we're going to use that AI profile called top secret. And then say, hey, let's list all our projects. Select AI. This is our keyword. This is a select statement that's been overridden or that's been updated, if you will, with a new AI keyword. So you say select AI, list all our projects. This is the natural language query. So we've updated the select statement in Autonomous Database with natural language, right? So now you simply, any SQL-based tool that can speak Oracle SQL can run a select, can now do natural language querying. Here are my on the right here, you can see here's the list of my secret projects. What is the total budget for all of our approved projects? $52 million. What's the sequel? So we've overridden, we've enhanced select statements. We also have an API called DBMS Cloud AI Generate. You're going to use this a lot, right? And it takes the profile name. It also takes the action. I put the action here too. I could say select AI show SQL. What is the budget? And it'll return that. But here I'm going to use it as part of the generate function. And this was the generated SQL. Select projects.budget, where from top secret projects, where the approval status is yes. So you'll notice things are now like little updates that we've made to Select AI. These are now case insensitive searches, and that's cool. All right, well that's nice. I'm now querying using natural language with a single API call to turn it on. Awesome. Well, but I have my mystery schema, right? And my mystery, no, who knows? Who knows what's in the mystery schema, right? And again, that's just owned by the mystery owner. Well, when I describe my tables in this mystery schema, they are very hard to understand. Table 1 has C1, C2, C3. Table 2 has C1 through C7. No one knows what's in here, right? But if I run, so if I say select star from my mystery table, where C2 is like the godfather, I can see, oh, C1 is actually containing movie IDs, C2 has titles, and C3 is the date, is the release date. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set my profile to use mysteries, right? Do it here as well. Clear this. A little bit easier to see. And now I'm going to ask my first question. What are the top movies based on total streams? Now, I said comments is false here. I'm not using comments. Now, because I'm not using comments, when I run this show SQL, it's going to say, how do I know? Right? Select AI show SQL, what are the top movies? It's going to say, sorry, I don't know. A select statement couldn't be generated for your natural language question because there's no information about movies or streams in the provided tables. But what I did do is I added comments to my table. And those comments, the first thing at the table level, it says, hey, this table contains movies, but I also included instructions, a template. Always add the column C3, which is year, when column C2 is queried. These are the templates that I was describing before. And I also put comments on all of my different tables. They're columns. So C1 is the movie ID, C2 is the titles, C3 is when it was released. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this and say, well, let's turn comments on. So we're actually now going to use those comments that were defined. And if I say, hey, what are our top movies based on total streams? Guess what? It's able to do it. And not only was it able to come up with those, but it also followed the rules that said, hey, every time you're asking for a movie, also ask for its release year. So it's following that template, that processing, those business rules, right? That's the purpose of being able to say, hey, every time I'm accessing this source, apply these rules consistently. All right. So, let's move on. We're going to do two things now. The next thing, I got to pick up the speed. So the next thing is, hey, how do you make Gen AI models better? right? They're amazing. Everyone knows it. We use them every day. They don't know about your data. That's their challenge. They're frozen in time often. They don't have access to your customers' your private data. And so that's where 23AI was brilliant, right? With introduction of things like RAG and AI vector search. And what that really does is it says, I have knowledge bases. Those knowledge bases are internal to our company. The models don't know about it. We're going to do a semantic search of that knowledge base and augment the information that I send to the model with content that only we know about. And now the model can help. Now the model can help deliver answers, right? And so Select AI simplifies the entire process of creating these vector indices from those knowledge bases. So we have that support site here. And basically what we do is we say, hey, point at this. We're going to have a simple API call that says, point at this source, this website, or what I'm going to do in a minute is we have our autonomous database presentation library, which is PowerPoint presentations. And what we're going to do is create a pipeline that's going to scan those documents that are in my object store, and it's going to chunk them, it's going to encode them, and it's going to create your vector indices automatically for you. And as new documents hit this knowledge base, I add new presentations, I new PDF files, Word documents, whatever it may be, the process will update those vector indices. I now have this all up to date, and now I can start asking my natural language questions. And I'm going to do that using retrieval augmented generation. My Roku is stuck on the opening scene of my movie, right? So just like before we asked a question of our tables, we're now going to ask questions from that vector. Using the same approach, we've overridden the select statement. My Roku is stuck on the opening scene. The user asks that question. Select AI encodes it. Performs a similarity search. It gets the documents that are coming from the knowledge base. Gets the top N that can help answer that question. Sends it off to the model. The user gets, hey, it seems like you're experiencing an issue with video playback on your Roku device. Based on that, here's what you should do, right? That is what RAG does for you, right? Retrieval augmented generation. And Select AI makes it really simple to define these pipelines and to ask these questions, right? So if we go back here on the right, just like we created a profile a second ago, over data that was from a source, in this case, it was a schema. Here, we're going to create an AI profile that describes autonomous database and its value proposition, right? So basically, we're putting in a little text, a little descriptive text, and this is what, honestly, this is being used by, this description is being used here to figure out, hey, when I ask my question, which is the right profile to use to answer that question? It's going to look at the description that you assign. So it's really simple, right? This isn't rocket science. It's really simple. But then it's saying, look, it's going to get this information from a vector, not from a pile of tables. So I've created my profile like I've created my other profiles, right? And then the other thing I'm going to do now is create that vector. I'm creating the pipeline. And I'm creating this pipeline that's being sourced from collateral that I have in a bucket. In this case, my bucket is on Google Cloud Storage. And I have my ADB presentation library on Google Cloud Storage, right? So this is the presentations that folks in our field, Oracle field, use for presenting to you. I grabbed a bunch of slides from this presentation library as well. There could be 100 documents here, 1,000 documents, whatever, n number of documents. I just had one, right? But that's what this step is going to do. It's going in and it's vectorizing that source, right? Now, when I go back to the Visual Studio Code and I can see that that pipeline, here it is, the vector pipeline, and it's going to run periodically. It started, it's done. And now I can just start asking my questions, right? So I'll set my profile to use this new topic and say, hey, what are 5 great value propositions for autonomous database? Right? So this question is coming from our ADB presentation library. Select AI narrate. What are our top 5 value propositions for autonomous database? It's doing this whole process of RAG, right, to answer this question. Best price performance, most cost effective, simplest for operations, etc. Now, when I go back into my app here and I say, we have a ton of databases. How can I save money with autonomous database and consolidate those databases? Oh, it's not going to come back with anything yet because I didn't add that topic to my AI profile. So I have my AI settings and I add ADB topics here, and now that's a new subject area, right, that it can search. Sorry about that. And I'll just ask that question again. We have a ton of databases. How can I save money with autonomous database? By consolidating. Now I'll ask that question again because we've added that knowledge base to the chat app. Well, Autonomous Database has this feature called Elastic Pools, which enables you to consolidate multiple databases. You can save up to 73%. And you can add, you just save tons of money. We have this family plan where you can consolidate and take advantage of all this compute and save with Autonomous Database. The next thing that I wanted to share, and then we'll close out, is how you can apply SQL functions to your data with AI. And that could be doing things like summarizing content, generating promotional emails, deriving key phrases, and summarizing information from your data, right? So these AI SQL functions, again, we're using DBMS Cloud generate function. It basically is saying, yeah, the model doesn't know information about your data. We're going to use a SQL function that's going to feed that model. And in this case, say, I have context from the database, which is customer information, recently watched movies, and the movies that we want to promote. That's coming from a query. We'll apply a SQL function to it that says, hey, recommend similar movies from the list and write a personalized email. And so Select AI is going to chat with the model, and it's going to return that compelling response. So in this case, it calls DBMS Cloud AI.generate. Sally, here's your question. Sally, here, we hope this finds you well. If you like, based on what you've seen in the past, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Back to the Future Part 3, and To Rome with Love, we think you'll like these other Back to the Future movies as well as Jurassic Park, right? So this is using built-in SQL functions. Now, the SQL functions are pretty powerful, right? In terms of like you get to apply natural language to them. So if I look at this, I go, okay, let's do an example of an address. I have an address, 38 Newberry Street. Well, I want to do spatial on that, or I want to be able to group by city, group by state. How can I do that if it's all a single line? So I have this address, and what I'm going to do is through our SQL function called DBMS Cloud AI Generate, which we used before, we're just going to give it rules. Parse this address into JSON values. Address number, street name, the unit number, etc. Right? So you break this into its individual fields. And then once you get that, you get the JSON document coming back. We'll break this into the actual fields, the address number, the street, the unit number. So now I can say, hey, I want to see total sales by city, by state, right? So you're starting with something that's unstructured, and now you're adding structure to that. And we're leveraging all the great JSON capabilities that are in the database, plus AI, which is able to break these fields apart. So it's a great way for doing things like data transformations. But let's say in my example, it may be a little bit more sophisticated than that, right? Maybe it says, hey, I live in Brookline, Mass. Why don't you come by at 10, walk over to 1785 Beacon Street. I'm in apartment 16F. Well, in this case, we're going to say, hey, take this unstructured text and turn this actually into a real address, right? Pop that into Google Maps or pop that into Apple Maps. And that's exactly what it does. Like, here's Beacon Street, right? So it goes in and it's able to derive that information. Or I have a support chat. Hey, I was so frustrated trying to resolve my billing issue. This guy, Marty, he's a real jerk. He's totally uninterested, blah, blah, blah. What a clown this guy, Marty, is. So what we're going to do is we're going to summarize that support chat. We'll pull out a summary, key phrases, sentiment, support, and here's how we want our result. This is all natural. This is called prompt engineering, right? You define the prompt as you need. And the support rep field will be the name of the customer service rep. I want a 2-sentence summary, extract the most important keywords, and then give me a sentiment from this frustrating experience that the person had with Marty, right? And it goes off, and it was a billing issue, an unhelpful representative. They didn't like me, and they were very frustrated, right? You get your 2-sentence summary. So again, this is just a way of applying AI as part of a transform process. And you're not going to want to do this one by one, right? And if you go to our GitHub repo, you'll see, actually, we have a blog post that you can grab here on how to apply natural language to your data. And there's also our GitHub repo, which that's pointing to. So we have an Oracle Autonomous Database Samples repo in DevRel. Here you can see it. So grab it. Like, all the things that I just went through today is all available in that GitHub repo. And I think we're at the top of the hour. So, there's tons of content to help you get started with Autonomous Database 2. Go to the Getting Started page, and you'll get links to all of this stuff. And Marcos, are there questions that people have?
Yes, I think we had a lot of great questions. So we had all our panelists typing them in. But yeah, so everything was great. People asking about how they could use their own models. Also some questions about the Onyx, right, and EBS tables and things like that. So I think we covered everything. So guys, if you need, make sure to type your questions in the Q&A. So Q&A is open. Again, thank you, Marty. This was really an intense session, right, with a lot of great demos and code as well. So people were asking actually about code and how they can copy and how they can get the ADB Chat Apex app as well, right, by themselves.
Marcus, I'm going to dump this in here right now into the chat.
That'll be perfect for sure.
Here's the sample repo in the chat. I'll send it to everyone.
Right.
There you go.
In the meantime, I'm asking guys, if you have questions still, make sure to type them in the Q&A, okay? We're looking to that. And then, yeah, Marty just shared the GitHub for the database samples where you can get the code, some of the code, right, that he was showing today, and apps, right, Marty? And sure, I think it's, again, understandable, right? This is not an easy topic, but I think following the GitHub that Marty showed, following the LiveLabs that Michelle Malcher shared right at the start of the session as well will take you guys a long way, right? And thank you again, guys, for the feedback. This is great. I'm sharing again the links to everything Autonomous Database, just so you have it in chat. And we still have a few questions coming up, Marty. Feel free to answer them live.
Yeah, the LiveLabs link, if you go to that GitHub repo, you'll also get clicks. You'll get access to the LiveLab link.
Right, and I think Michelle
go to
originally.
I think the best thing is to go to the Getting Started page, honestly.
Right.
So
right,
this
right.
is, I'll put a few LiveLabs in the chat right now. But the Getting Started page also has links to that.
Okay, yeah, Michelle shared it again with the person that asked.
Right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Excellent. So perfect. Again, thank you very much, Marty. This was excellent. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Again, if you still have questions, make sure to type them in the Q&A. We'll still be we'll be here for a few minutes, and then. But final thoughts: if you guys want to see the next sessions, watch the recording, look at the links. Right, they are all on that main site for the Learning Lounge. Okay, so if you go there, you're going to be able to actually do exactly what Marty was saying, the getting started and things like that. So the links are going to be there, easy for you guys to go in. Okay. All right. So thank you for now then. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Marty. This was a great session.
Thank you, everybody.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. And I'll leave these running for a few more minutes. If you guys still have any questions that you think about, you can put it here. Otherwise, I will leave you guys to some exit music. Again, thank you.